Shalom, Yahabashah Shah, the blind to Pastor JMS. This I'm now Allah coming at you with part 2 of this video going into Claudius expelling the Jews from Rome. There was some more articles that I wanted to read. I had basically got all of the scriptures that I wanted to get, but there was still some more articles that I had to get to. So let's get right to it. So this is from Biola University. It says something about the book of Romans that will help you really get it. Let me go right down to the point. Here's something that many people I talk to about Paul's letter to the Romans don't seem to yet have grasped. The earliest house churches in Rome would have been primarily Jewish and would have culturally felt Jewish. But in AD 49, the Roman Emperor Claudius kicked the Jews out of Rome. Jewish Christians, of course, would have been expelled along with the rest of the Jews. During the 5 years between Claudius' edict, AD 49, and his death, AD 54, when the edict lapsed and Jews started to return, the composition and self-understanding of the house churches in Rome would have shifted considerably. Paul's letter to the Romans would have arrived in Rome somewhere around AD 57, during the period when Jews were still trickling back into Rome. If you can fix in your mind that the expulsion of Jews from Rome had a tremendous impact on the churches in that city, you will understand the message of Romans oh so much better. Now this whole article is good, so I'm kind of just gonna I guess I'll just scroll through it like this a little bit so your brothers can look and read about it on your own. And it gives you even the notes of where those passages that I just read came from. I'll probably get into a little more into this later on in the future. I read right here, it says, since the Jews were constantly rioting under the leadership of Christus, he, Claudius, expelled them from Rome. Suetonius' Lives of the 12 Caesars. All right, jump down. Many historians suggest that although Suetonius, writing about AD 120, thought someone named Christus, a common Roman name, had caused the disturbance that led to the expulsion of Jews was in fact over one named Christus, Christ. Thus, a disturbance between non-Christian Jews and Christian Jews. In other words, Israelites who believed and who didn't. Like the Gentiles you read in the book of Acts, I believe the 17th chapter, where it said to provoke them to jealousy. It speaks about how it said the Gentiles sought the word to be taught to them in the next Sabbath. Let me get that real quick. Right to the point. It said Acts 17 is Acts 13. Acts 13:42. 7:41. Behold, ye despisers and wonder and perish, for I work in your days, a work which ye shall in no wise believe, though a man declare it unto you. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Now when the congregation was broken up, and that work that it was going to work was that the Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, was going to believe. Because remember, they were living their lives like the other nations. So it was very hard for people to believe that they would, it was very hard for the Jews to believe that they would be able to receive the word of the Most High, because they were living like heathens for so long, worshiping their gods, dressing like them, not keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments of the scriptures. Now when the congregation was broken up, many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of the Most High. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of the Most High. But when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy, and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of the Most High should first have been spoken to you. But seeing ye put it from you, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. And them Gentiles talking about the Israelite foreigners. The word Gentile just means nation. It doesn't mean non-Jew. For so have, and I could read a little bit further up in the verse I started, but I want to just stick to the point. And when the Gentiles heard this, they were glad and glorified the word of Yahweh Shemashah, and as many as were ordained to eternal life believed. And the word of Yahweh Shemashah was published throughout all the region. But the Jews stirred up the devout and honorable women and the chief men of the city, and raised persecution against Paul and Barnabas, and expelled them out of the coast. So they expelled them out of the coast, but they shook off the dust of their feet against them and came unto Iconium. So it was a big commotion that happened in there. But this just to give you an example when it said Christian Jews and non-Christian Jews. Because you had some Jews that didn't believe. You had some Jews that did, you had some Jews that didn't. I just wanted to go to the Gentile part to show you that you had those Gentiles talking about Israelite foreigners. So mention Jews and then mention Gentiles. Both are talking about Israelites though. Okay? I just want to give you that example right there. This is from ancientworlds.net, right? This whole thing is good. Okay, I'm reading. Try to read through this kind of fast. Let me see. The Emperor Claudius settled the dispute between the Jews and the Greeks of Alexandria that began at the end of the reign of the Emperor Gaius, as we know from his letter to the civic authorities of that city. Ancient documents also show that there were disputes and civic disorders in Rome during Claudius' reign. Disorders which involved Jews. What were the disorders about? The sources are vague and do not quite agree among themselves, starting with the oldest. End of the 1st century AD, author the book of Acts of the Apostles, chapter 18, Claudius ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Circa 121 AD, Suetonius' Life of Claudius, chapter 25, Claudius banished from Rome all the Jews who were continually making disturbances at the instigation of one Christus. Early 3rd century AD, Dio Cassius' Historia Romana, book 60, I believe that's maybe 40. Let me see. I think that's book 60. Hold on. Okay, yeah, that's 60. Because when the bigger Roman numerals on the left side, if the smaller Roman numerals on the right side, the numbers go up. You combine them instead of subtracting. It says, chapter 6, it says, as for the Jews who had again increased so greatly that by reason of their multitude, it would have been hard without raising a tumult to bar them from the city. So some saying, well, it would have been hard to bar them from the city without raising a big commotion. He did not drive them out, but ordered them, while continuing their traditional mode of life, not to hold meetings. Early, what you read about that in part 1, early 5th century AD, Paulus Orosius, Historiarum Adversum Paganos, Libri 7th, book 7, chapter 6, in the 9th year of his reign, Claudius expelled the Jews from Rome. All right. Of these 4 sources, 3 say Claudius expelled all the Jews, while one, Cassius Dio, explicitly denies this. At the top of your page. Orosius says he quotes Suetonius and Flavius Josephus, but if Josephus ever did write such a thing, that writing has been lost. However, we must disagree with all 3 sources when they say that Claudius expelled all the Jews from Rome. An exodus of so many thousands of people would no doubt have created more problems than it solved. But more importantly, such an act was legally impossible since quite a number of Roman Jews were Roman citizens. Not even an emperor could simply banish a Roman citizen from Rome without at least a semblance of a trial before Roman magistrates. No mention of trials is made anywhere, and it seems reasonable to assume that the rights of all Roman citizens were respected. Of the remaining Jews who were not Roman citizens, other important number were slaves, and it would appear certain that their owners would not have tolerated the banishment of their property without their consent. At most, we can believe possible that Jewish peregrini were ordered to leave Rome, but all peregrini, that's strangers. Okay. Or foreigners. Peregrine, free provincial subject of the empire who was not a Roman citizen. Okay? You had different types of Roman citizenships as well, which I did shows in that a while ago, showing that. Suetonius introduces another criteria that will reduce even further the number of Jews expelled from Rome. The ones who were expelled, he says, were involved in civic disorders instigated by Christus. Who is this Christus? After much investigation, historians are still unsure whether Suetonius is in fact referring to Jesus Christ or not. His wording, impulsor Christo, is inconclusive. If Suetonius, whom scholars agree is a less reliable source than Tacitus or Cassius Dio, is referring to Christ, then he is informing us that Roman Jews were engaged in a theological quarrel which became so heated as to erupt into civic disorders. In that case, the Jews expelled would not be loudest troublemakers either for or against Jesus Christ. If, on the other hand, he was not referring to Jesus Christ, but to someone else, that someone else is otherwise unknown in ancient sources. Nor does Suetonius tell us what this Christus was doing or saying that could inflame passions so amongst the Jews of Rome. There is some evidence that weighs in favor of a reference to Jesus Christ, the book of Acts. And it speaks about Claudius. I'm going to jump down. Okay, keep reading. Acts the Apostles named a couple, Aquila and Priscilla. His wife Priscilla, whom Paul of Tarsus meets in the city of Corinth, a Roman colony at the time. Aquila and Priscilla are Jews and believers in Jesus Christ, just like Paul. They have recently arrived from Rome because of Claudius' banishment of Jews from that city. If that is so, then we have at the Acts some confirmation of the thesis that quarrels among Jews in Rome arose because some Jews accepted Jesus Christ as the Messiah while others rejected him. Which quarrels came to the attention of Roman authorities, and which quarrels came to the attention of Roman authorities and led to the banishment of those perceived as instigators of civic disorder. Lastly, although Claudius' banishment of disrupted Jews cannot be dated with absolute certainty, the arrival of Paul of Tarsus in Corinth can be dated to the winter of 49-50, talking about CE or AD. At what you read about, read that in the last part. It was about 49 AD, approximately, meaning roughly. At that time, Aquila and Priscilla, whom Paul does not baptize because they were presumably already baptized, have arrived recently from Rome. How long ago was recently? Again, certainty is out of the question, since the couple became Christians while they were living in Rome, and if one postulates that they had been in Corinth less than a year, then that suggests the beginning of Roman Jews converting to Christianity at the latest in early 49, around the time they was being expelled, possibly 48 or even 47 AD, possibly even earlier, assuming that conversion to Jesus Christ did not lead all converts to immediately adopt unruly, disorderly conduct in the streets of Rome. So some people was saying, well, he didn't expel all the Jews. Maybe it was this many Jews. Maybe it was these particular kind of Jews. So you had different historians saying different things. But the book of Acts links right up with what Claudius did. Okay? So they're saying, well, it wasn't all the Jews, but it was Jews that was causing, basically discord due to the belief in Yahushua. Okay? Because it said Cassius Dio denied that he expelled all the Jews. Right here. Sorry, right here. It says he denied he's expelled all the Jews. Right? Suetonius had a criteria where he said, well, it had to be the Jews that was causing civic disorders. Okay? And Dio Cassius said, well, it would have been hard to, expel them without causing some kind of tumult. Remember, as you read also, it says some were slaves or no servants. So it would have been hard to just expel their property, people's property. But we do know, that's why I said at most we can believe that the Jewish peregrini were ordered to leave Rome. But now of course, obviously, You wouldn't think that every single last Jew that was there was expelled from Rome, of course. But we do know, according to the scriptures, you had Jews that was expelled from Rome. You know that for a fact. And real quick, see these numbers right here? Right there? The number 1. You could basically scroll down where you see those things in the brackets. Right here, it says 2. You scroll down to the bottom of the page, you need brackets. And it lets you know where the sources come from. And this is the definition of the word peregrinus. Definition of peregrinus is a person who is not a citizen of Rome, but is still a free person. They are foreigners who are not slaves. The plural form peregrinus is peregrini. Okay? In ancient Rome, a peregrinus was a person who was not a Roman citizen, but was still a free person. They were considered to be a free foreigner. A person from Greece who was living in Rome during ancient times would be considered a peregrinus. A traveler from Egypt who was visiting Rome would also be considered a peregrinus. These examples illustrate the definition of peregrinus because they both show individuals who were not Roman citizens but were still free people. They were considered to be foreigners in Rome and were not entitled to the same rights and privileges as Roman citizens. Yes, with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to say, praise to Yahweh Shem Shah, double line to Apostle GMS. See, this video is about 17 minutes. That's why I wanted to split it up and do another part, because the last video would have been over half hour and people probably wouldn't even watched it. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to say, praise to Yahweh Shem Shah, double line to Apostle GMS. I hope I learned something. Shalom.